Good morning, everybody. Slightly late, but we got here in the end. Slight technology glitch there. Hi, I'm Kate. If you've seen me before, you'll know that my Facebook page, What Kate Made, I do a lot of craft sessions. Today, I'm going to do a little bit of upcycling. Upcycling is one of my passions. A lot of the materials I use in my crafts are reclaimed from various other things. Today, I'm going to show you how to reclaim some old cutlery. So everybody has a drawer full of cutlery. It doesn't necessarily have to be. This is quite a nice one. I picked this up at a junk shop. I think it's silver plated. It's certainly got some sort of hallmark on the back anyway. But it doesn't have to be like that. It could just be the cheap and cheerful jewellery, cutlery you get at the cheapy shops. In fact, this is better because whether you can see how thin that is, it bends really easily, because that's what we're going to do with it. Some of it we're going to bend. The second thing we're going to make is a little wind chime. Cutlery works really well as wind chimes because it has a really nice ringing tone. So what we're going to start with is something like this. Now I'm going to hold it up to the camera I'll hold it to the camera like this first. As you can see, this is quite a nice fork. This is sort of probably about a 50s, 60s vintage fish fork. And what I've done is bent the tines so that two go forward and two go backwards. And that makes a little like pictures. You have to stand up straight. It's hard holding it up to the camera. It makes a little stand for a picture, photo or something like that. Quite attractive, that one. I will try and point my camera down a bit and then you can probably see it standing up. So just bear with me a second. Okay, so this is it standing. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to get the balance right, so you have to bend the tines together at the same time. And that's it with its picture on it. So you can see how it's really nice. And it will hold up photographs. It'll hold up anything in a small frame. It is quite small, that one. So the other one I made in the same sort of way is this one, which is with one of the very cheap forks. And as you can see, they bend much better. So I have sort of done a little bit of twiddling on the, I don't know if you can see that, on the back tines, just to bend them a little bit more, make it a little bit more decorative. So I'm going to start with this one. Simple tools. I will just go through them with you. Obviously, the first thing you need is a fork. Then you need pliers. Now, I have my jewellery making kit consists of 4 different sets of pliers. I'm afraid I can't see your comments today, so I will review them all later. I have a pair of they're gripping pliers, as are these, but these have a much finer end. These are called needle nose pliers. These are more like a crocodile plier. So those are my 2 gripping ones, and I can't see it just now, but I have a pair of cutting ones as well. Cutting wire. Bear with me a sec. There we go. They're for snipping wire. Probably won't use those today, but I've got them out just in case. So you may also need a hammer. That's not essential, but I have one. This is just a little jewellery hammer. And I also have, I don't know if you can see the camera of it. I'll bring it forward. This is my vice. I got this for my birthday. Not weird, isn't it? But it's a tabletop vice, and I do use that in jewellery making sometimes, but neither the vice nor the hammer are essential for what I'm going to show you today. Although they're handy if you want to carry on with making some jewellery, they are quite handy to have. Right, so here we go. We're going to start with our fork and our crocodile pliers, these ones. And we're going to start by, if I put this one here, you can see the 2 outer tines have gone out virtually horizontally. Now, it is important that you do get them level, because otherwise your stand will wobble. And the 2 inner ones are making the bit where the picture will stand. Oh no, it's the other way around, isn't it? Let me try the picture in that one, because it's slightly different to the... So yeah, the picture will stand on the front 2 and the back 2 are its feet, if you like. Okay, so I'll leave that one there. Now, this is a very cheap fork, so it is quite easy to bend. So I'm going to start by bending forward the two outer two tines. That's this one and this one. So I'm going to grip them right where they join the main body of the fork. I'm not sure what that's called. Can you see? Okay, there you. And I'm going to bend it. It is quite tough, but it will go eventually. Once it starts to go, it goes. So I want it at a right angle like that. And then I'm going to do the same with the other side. I might try it from the other side. It will go eventually. Sometimes a bit. You need to have a good grip for this. This is sometimes where the vise comes in handy because you can clamp it in the vise. It's easier to bend. But just for today, because this one should bend quite easily when I twist it. Once it starts to go, it seems to go a lot easier. Let's try doing it from the other side. But Uri Geller, if I was Uri Geller, if you're old enough to remember Uri Geller, you could just do this by looking at it. It's not wanting to go today. I don't think my grip's very good. You can't really, you've got to be fairly. Now, if you can see, that's not quite parallel there. So I need to just adjust them slightly. I think this one needs to come up a little bit. And I'm also going to try and bend them out slightly. It's not easy to do that because it's going against the way the metal's been made, but I will just give it a bit of a go. Just because that makes it easier for them to stand. So that's my two back prongs, which, as you can see, are fairly level now. Push that one back a little bit. Now it's bent, it doesn't want to go back. Appreciate that for anybody who hasn't got a good grip, this is probably a little bit of hard work, but there we go. Now, the two inner tines are going to come out in the same way, but I'm going to bend them. If you can see, I'm going to bend them about ½ centimetre up from the body of the fork, which is handily, it's just about the width of my pliers. So I'm going to measure it by resting it right across. So I've got that little bit of a gap there. Now I can get both tines in now. So it does make it slightly easier, maybe not, to bend them. So I'm bending them at a 90-degree angle again. And again, you want to get them as even as you can. There we go. So not strictly even, but I can even it up by bending that one a little bit more at the same place. It's just getting your grip in the right place to get maximum leverage. I don't know if anybody's out there. I wish because I had technical difficulties with getting my feed up, I haven't had a chance to get my second device going. So I can't really tell if anybody's out there, but I will later. So you just keep bending until you get it how you want it. So they're fairly even. So as I said before, it's going to stand on these back ones, and it's going to, you've got like that. And you're going to rest your picture or whatever on these front ones. Now, as you can see, that's not wanting to stand up on its own. So I think the reason is that these back prongs need to be a bit higher. So I'm going to bend them back a little bit further. Hope you can see me. It's still not quite even, so I'm going to get in with and bend it to get my grip properly. A little bit more. I didn't realise it took me quite this long when I was doing it, practicing on Saturday. think it might be this front one that's pushing it out a little bit. There we go. That's more or less standing up. Once it gets the weight of a picture on it, it will stand up a bit more. So what I'm going to do now is just make the back a little bit more decorative by curling up the ends of these two prongs. Not too much, because you need that spread to get your balance. So I'm just going to, the ends where it's thinner are a lot easier to twist. And once the metal gets worked, it just gets softer, so it just gets easier to do these things. So I'm just going to use the tips of my pliers to just provide a little tiny right angled tip there. Similarly, with these two front ones, I'm going to try and curl them a little bit more. So I'm going to switch to the narrower nose, because then I can kind of wind them around the narrower nose if I can do that. It's almost like a spiral. So I'm going to do that, one twist and then another twist. And you can see I've got that little loop. Now, as I said to you before, this works much better with cheap cutlery. It's a lot harder to do with the sort of vintage style cutlery, simply because that is a lot thicker and it's harder to bend. This one's not quite right. I think that's why it's not quite sitting straight. Let's try that again. It's not very happy with sitting there. I'm going to bend this one again. Maybe try just pulling them apart a little bit to give it a little bit more balance. Yeah, going slightly. This has got quite worked now, this metal, so it's got a bit softer. It's just a case of fiddling till you get it right. There we go. Get my picture again. This picture of a koi carp. This is one my daughter-in-law painted for me. And that sits lovely on there. But it would just do just as well for a photograph. You could have two. I don't know whether... Oh, yeah. Put that one there. So you could have two side by side. See, that one's bent back a bit further. To hold your picture up, if you had a bigger picture. But I think that's really nice. You could also pop your phone in it. Can't show you it with my phone because my phone is... But this is my tablet. Not sure whether it'll hold the weight of a tablet. Maybe not. Maybe this one will. Now, the other thing is, with these two, I've noticed, is that one is further back than the other because I've bent it the other way. So if you wanted to bend it back, you'd have to bend this bit. And you could do that. I'll turn you a little bit. Oops, sorry. If I put this in my vise, which way do I want to bend it? So you put it in the vise and you can bend it a little bit more, like that. Cool. So that's the first thing I was going to show you. Quite a simple piece of just metalwork, bending metalwork. So turn you back around a little bit. Right, so the second thing I'm going to show you is the wind chime. Now, if I'd been a little bit more organised, I would have fetched my wind chime in from outside. I've got a wind chime in my tree outside. It's been hanging there, I think 2 years now, and it's still held together in the method I'm going to show you. So I just want to check my glue. Does that come on? So what I'm going to use for this is I'm going to use a cookie cutter. Picked all these things up at a junk shop on Friday morning. Assorted cutlery. Now this is where the more sort of heavyweight cutlery is coming in to use. And I'm going to use, I won't use that one because I started bending that one. I'm going to use 5 pieces of cutlery. So I've got 3 spoons, all slightly different, and 2 forks. You also need fishing line. Fishing line's great because it's clear. And it ties in good knots that don't come undone. You will need, I think that's right. You won't need pliers for this one. Oh, you'll need assorted beads. I've chosen a range of metallic ones. I've already done some of this, so you don't have to watch me threading them all on. All my beads come from jewellery that I pick up in junk shops, charity shops, and then I take it apart. So this was a metal bead necklace, which I've taken apart. I've also got a little tiny cog there, which I may use or may not use. Because the other thing that's good for these kind of wind chimes are keys. So the beads are to make it a little bit decorative. I'm just going to pop them there. So you start with your cookie cutter and your fishing line. And what you want to be your fishing line needs to be long enough to tie around your cookie cutter, like that. Then to have it dangling as far as you want it, and then a little bit extra, another inch, to tie around your piece of cutlery. Where did I put my scissors? So I'm just going to cut that off there. Put that to one side. So this piece is about a foot long. You may not need yours that long. It depends on how far you want them to dangle down. It's a nice idea to have them dangling down at slightly different heights as well. So I'm going to pop that up a little bit so I've got room. Cookie cutter. So we start by tying it on. I say it makes good knots. It does make good knots. It is quite often quite a good idea to put a blob of glue on. And normally, as you know, I use hot glue for everything, but hot glue is not the best thing for this job because it's hot and it melts the plastic. So the next thing we want is to thread on our beads. Now, you don't have to use any beads at all, but it is quite nice to have a bit of decoration with your beads. This one has still got a bit of wire in it, so I'm just going to nip that out. Cut it off. So I am using my wire cutters. Usually that flies off. It hasn't today, so that's good because it sometimes goes right near your eyes. Right, so I've taken the fastening out of it. Now, one of the problems with invisible fishing lines is you can't always see it. So I'm going to thread mine. I've already threaded some up, and I'm going to do it in a certain order. So I'm going to put the little beads on first, and then so I've got two little sort of flatter metallic beads. I've got this nice shiny one. It's like a miniature glitter ball. And one of the nice things about invisible thread and beads is that it's very easy to thread through. Sometimes thicker cords are difficult, particularly when I'm doing macrame. That doesn't want to go all the way through. Where does it want to go through? Maybe that the bead's slightly up inside. Nope, that's not going in. Just bear with me a second. This is where I need a magnifying glass. There we go. And then I think I'll have this quite nice enamelled flower spacer. These will come up all sorts of different bits of jewellery. I am quite a big fan of jewellery. I'll put this wider one on. And then one last spacer, this little narrow one, before I put my final bead on, which is going to be the one I showed you first. Sort of copper barrel shaped one. Okay, so I've got all my beads on, strung on, and there's my cookie cutter at the end. So now I'm going to tie on my piece of cutlery. Now some are easier than others. This one, for instance, has quite a heavy top on it. That's quite easy to tie around. But the ones with the smoother handles are a bit more difficult. So the trick is to tie it low down and tie it in a getting twisted up. Tie it in a secure knot. You can't see my thread because obviously it's invisible. And as a secure knot as you can. So I usually go a triple knot. That's 1, 2. And I find if we wind it again through the same loop, it does make it a little bit stronger. 2, and then the final one. Now, what I was saying about glue before, at this point, you would maybe want to put a little dab of glue on I'm going to try the hot glue, because sometimes the cold metal does cool it down insufficiently for you then to put the. But I'm going to put a blob right at the top. Give it a few seconds, and then put the fishing line through it and hope it doesn't break. Now that is sufficient to hold that at the top. I will then put some more where the knot is and hope that doesn't melt it through. I don't think it has. It solidifies quite nicely against the cold metal, you see. Yeah, don't do that. So what you can see now is I have got my, I don't know if you can see that. I'm just going to turn the camera up a little bit. So I've got my cookie cutter at the top, and then I've got my beads, and then I've got my fork. Now, in true Blue Peter fashion, I've prepared some earlier. So I am going to very quickly show you how to finish it off. These are quilting clips. They're ace because they're really good. They grip even the nicest, the finest threads like that. So I can get that gripped at that end while I tie this on. You want to space out your hanging bits on your cookie cutter, biscuit cutter, just evenly. 5's the best number for your cutlery, just because they're close enough together to clang. If you want them to be able to clang. So then I'm going to tie this triple knot in this one. You can hear as they clang together even on the table. They do sound nice. And the last one. I'm just going to bear with me a little while I do this. I might not do them all because that could be a bit boring. Although I would like you to see what it looks like when it's finished. So that one just needs fixing at the top with the glue. Give it a minute so it's starting to set. And I'll move on to the next one. I've lost the other end of that one. Bear with me a second while I untangle. Again, I'll leave the clip on one end so my beads don't go running off. So we want to turn it about another, well, 5th, because we're putting 5 on, and tie it again. Don't know what the weather's like with you, but it's been a bit dull here the last 4 or 5 days. So we've had lots of rain, which my garden's very thankful for. I haven't yet had a barbecue this year. Have any of you? We normally have had 2 or 3 by now, but when it was really, really hot, we didn't want to sit outside, and it seems to have been really, really hot or cold and wet and no in between. Fingers and thumbs with this at the moment. There we go. Try that. And again, I'm going to just bob a bit of glue on it. Let that cool a little. And then there's a fine line between letting it cool too much and making your I'm not sure that one's going to hold yet. So let's turn the camera up a little bit so you can see this a bit better. You can see how it looks. They're all at slightly different heights because of the way I've tied the knots, but they've all got their beads. And if I can, you can hear them tinkling. My husband calls my tree the singing, ringing tree now. I don't know whether you remember the singing, ringing tree. I don't. He does. But yeah, that's that. So I'll leave that and finish that off later. I'm just going to show you a few little things that you can do that require a bit more sort of DIY mechanical bits. So let me just turn you up again. So the first one I've done is this. Now I'm going to make it into a keyring. It's the handle of a teaspoon, and I have curled the end round. Now I've curled it round with pliers and with the vise because it's quite a thick handle. First of all, I cut the ball of the spoon off with a hacksaw. I was down in the garage. My husband wondered what I was up to, all the hammering and sawing. And then I turned the end over, and I'm going to thread through that a keyring end, and then it makes a nice keyring. Or you could thread it onto a chain as a pendant, but it's quite big, that. So I started out with a teaspoon like this, and then I sawed off the ball. Now the ball, I haven't quite figured out what I want to do with that yet, but I'm sure there is something I can do with it. So that is your cutlery handle keyring. The other thing you can do is these were very popular in the 70s. I remember my mum had a set of these. You can beat the balls with a hammer so that they flatten out, and then you can either write a message on them or using a metal stamping kit, which I do have but I've not used yet, to metal stamp the balls. These are also quite nice on your thing. The other thing I showed you, the wind chime, because they're shiny as well. When they're hanging in the garden, they reflect the light, so that is nice. I might put these two on mine that I'm doing now. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that. This session's been a little bit shorter than I normally would do. I'm conscious that I don't want you to watch me just... I might finish off this, and then you can see what it's done when it's finished. So I will use a couple of these shiny spoons in it to make a difference. Just bear with me. So I've got these have got a little tang. I've got 2 more strings of beads here, so I can do 2 more on my wind chime quickly. It would be really nice to see if you do make one, to see what you've made. I always enjoy seeing them. I'm not sure whether you can post them in the comments, but if you can't, you could always post them on my page. I'm sure it usually pops up the page name, but I don't see it at the moment, but it'll be in the comments. My glue's into sleep, so let that settle just a little bit. You can see it changing colour, the opaqueness of the hot glue, so it goes more opaque as it settles. So we lift that up again, untangle these, so you can see that that extra one really catches the light. So that's me for today. A little bit shorter than usual, but thank you very much for watching, and I'll check back over your comments later when I'm sitting having my lunch. I'm on again next week. Next week I'm doing pet toys from Upcycle Fabrics. So they're all no-sew. They're all ones that the best fabrics to use if you want to join in next week is felt or fleece or t-shirt material, something that doesn't fray. So anyway, that's me, Kate, saying goodbye. Take a look at my page on Facebook, What Kate Made, and my website, also What Kate Made, and see a few of the other things that I do. It's been nice working with you today, and I'll see you next week.